3, 2. Welcome, everybody. We're back on the Athlete Hackers Podcast. My name's Chris Schrade.
My name's Mark Spellman. Welcome back. Hope everybody's been safe, healthy, and happy during this pandemic time.
Mark, our last episode was the advantages of training at home during the coronavirus. And you said that you wanted to follow up on that because you came across some information that you thought would be good based on that subject.
Yeah, everybody that's going through this and having a hard time with it, first and foremost, I'd have you listen to the Be Legendary podcast with Bert Sorn and Brandon Lilly. Bert Sorn is the president of Sornex Training Equipment. And they really touched on, they first and foremost, they build phenomenal training equipment. But with this time and everybody's lack of ability to get to a training facility, they actually designed and developed and are putting out off-grid racks for a very manageable price. And all the profits from those racks are going to COVID-19 research and helping families during this trying time. But he brought up a very good point. You know, you have all these athletes that are home nowadays, and you have five-star athletes that might not be doing what they need to be doing to stay a five-star athlete. So it's the opportunity for those 2- and 3-star athletes to catch up, or for those five-star athletes to create even a greater gap between fellow athletes that aren't doing what they need to be doing.
You better get it going. You better get it going because they're on your heels, those five-star athletes.
I mean, and I think when we talked about it, it was, you know, you look at somebody who might not be playing, they could use this time to work on the stuff that they need to work on to play. And then if they go even above and beyond, they could go from somebody who was not starting to being a starter to being a star of the team. He looked at it as like the walk-on who went from walk-on to starter to playing as a professional. So once again, it's getting back into the mindset of, you know, you don't have to, you get to, you know. And I've really been thinking about this the last probably year or two with mentality and how important it is with everything you do. And if you just change it from I get to I have to, or from I have to I get to, just changing that one word is going to give you probably the mindset and outlook for having a better day, having a better workout, and being more successful with whatever you're going to do. So, you know, during this time of uncertainty, don't look at it as, oh, woe is me. Look at it as how am I going to come out of this as a better person? So, you know, I think we've talked about it. I keep the same routine pretty much every day. Get up, make sure my kids are good to go, take my dog for a walk, say my prayers, do my my mental exercises and all that good stuff. Then I do my continuing education, and then I get a workout in. So that's what I've been doing for the last month every day.
So where can people go find those racks? You know the website?
The racks are, you can go to sornex.com. And for the, you know, we're probably going to be, unlike a lot of other podcasts, that we will shout out to other podcasts that we listen to and give out good information. The podcast that Bert and Brandon were on, it's called Be Legendary, and it's a series from Sornex that they put on, and it's usually Brandon talking with a strength and conditioning coach or somebody in the health and fitness profession, and just sitting down talking about the profession. So it's called Awesome. Be Legendary.
So check out that podcast. And again, that was a kind of a continuation of our last podcast, episode 2, which was the advantages of training during the coronavirus. And as Mark said, you've got a lot of work that you could be putting in, and a lot of distance that you could put between you and your opponents, or a lot of catching up you can do in this time period. So that brings us to episode 3, the importance of cross-training and multiple sport participation. The reason I like this, Mark, is because I think this is going to be a reoccurring theme in a lot of our podcasts because it's so important.
Yes. I've, as a veteran of the collegiate strength and conditioning world, I would have a lot of coaches come to me and go, what do I need to recruit? And I would always tell them better athletes.
Yeah.
They're looking out for a player that's going to make their team better at whatever sport, whether it be basketball, football, lacrosse, soccer, track and field, swimming, whatever. But at the end of the day, I needed better athletes. I just needed the best athletes that they could find. And that didn't always mean I needed the best sport participant, because the better athlete that you are, probably the better you're going to be at whatever sport you play.
Yeah.
So, when we talked about this topic, one of the main things is that, we both grew up in a time where we played a different sport for every season. We didn't focus on one sport year round. And I would say, that's what I'm trying to do with my children. And I think that's what Chris is trying to do with his children, that they're playing a sport during every season. And as they get older, then they're going to narrow down their scope of what they want to focus on. And I would recommend that to any parent right now. If you have children coming up, instead of focusing on one sport year round, I would say play multiple sports throughout the year. And then as they get older, then they're going to have to narrow down their scope, because nowadays, unlike in the old days, you don't find too many athletes that play multiple sports at the collegiate level.
The first time I came across this was when you and I did the Optimal Athletic Development week-long camp that we did in the summer, I think 2012, 2013. And we had Dr. Josh Lander come in and talk to the kids. And that's one of the things that he brought up. And it was kind of the first time I'd heard about it, about the best thing you can do as an athlete to improve yourself in other sports is play other sports. And then ever since then, it's just come up all the time whenever I'm talking to people about sports or watching something on sports. And just recently I was having a conversation with a guy in town that runs the rec basketball league. And I was surprised. He told me, he mentioned a couple athletes, but the most prolific was Patrick Mahone. I guess played 2 or 3 sports in college and then ended up going to the NFL. And of course, was this his rookie season this year, or was second year?
It was either second or third.
Second or third. Well, I mean, second or third year in, he wins the Super Bowl, and everyone saw his athletics on display. Multiple sport athlete in college.
It didn't hurt that his dad was a Major League Baseball player.
That never does. Genetics never does.
Once again, you can't beat. I mean, everybody wants to fight it, but you can't beat genetics. Genetics and Mother Nature and Father Time, they're all undefeated.
What would you say, what are the dynamics involved in playing different sports that creates better athletes?
Well, there's a couple. First and foremost, it's going to teach the individual how to move more efficiently and effectively through all 3 planes of motion. A lot of sports are repetitive in their motions and what they have to do, but they're also very similar in what they have to do. You look at, say you have somebody playing soccer and basketball. The moves are very similar, but the court and the field are very different, as far as their size and scope and what they're doing. Also, you're dealing with a team of 5 that are playing versus a team of 11 that are playing. So you're looking at dynamics that are going to have to be greater when you're dealing with a team of 11 versus a team of 5. What I did growing up, I participated in an individual sport of swimming, and I participated in a team sport of soccer.
I think that's huge. That's huge. That's something that I didn't do until I was in my 20s, was the individual sport. Up until that point, it was all team sports, and no one ever talked about that. But that's something that's got to be taken into consideration when you're thinking about multiple sports, is team sport as well as individual sports, because the individual sports, all the emphasis is on you. We're in a
Yep.
team sport, depending on what sport it is and what position you are, sometimes you can slack off and you can still pull out a win. You can't do that when you're playing individual sports. And that is a huge teaching factor.
Well, and that's why I liked it. And that's why I went to the individual sport, because I like everything being on me. If I do what I need to do, I'm going to be better at what I want to do. Where, if I went down the soccer path and, became very good at soccer, I still had to depend on the other 10 people on my team, and if those 10 individuals didn't do their job, more than likely we're going to lose, and we're not going to get to where I want to ultimately get to, is winning a championship and being the best I can be. I look at you look at some of the greatest players in their sports that haven't won championships, and I go, everybody knows Dan Marino. Dan Marino, one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in the NFL, in the Hall of Fame. But guess what? I guarantee you, he'd probably trade a lot of those things for a Super Bowl ring. So we're talking about playing multiple sports, and I really think not only multiple sports, but different sports as far as whether they're individual or team setting. All of my children do sports and do activities. My youngest, he's really fallen in love with BJJ. He really loves Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Does that mean it's the only thing he does? No. I mean, he still plays basketball, still plays soccer, but he really likes going and rolling on the mat. So, as a parent and a father, it's my responsibility to make sure that I develop that passion and growth and support it. No matter what I want him to do, I still know that as a parent and as his father, my job and responsibility is to make sure he comes out and is a well-rounded adult. And at the end of the day, that's what athletics is about.
Yeah. I noticed that with Aiden, when he was in third grade, we finished playing fall ball, and we were going to get into the basketball season. That was the first time he was able to play basketball in a team setting, and he didn't want to play. He was so into baseball, like that's all he wanted to do. Once we got into into basketball, he really fell in love with it, and that's all he wants to do now. And as a father, I had to obviously. I don't want to be one of those fathers that forces his hand to do something if he doesn't want to. Obviously, third grade's a little too young to be thinking that way. So he played basketball and he loved it, but he tends to kind of hyper focus on one sport at a time. We were finishing up the basketball season around January. We're full blown basketball season, but there was some weekly lacrosse stick practices that he started going to. And I could see that hyper focus starting to go into lacrosse with him. And, that might just be his personality, but certainly that exists in other kids too. But I've got to break him away and try to get him to understand the advantage of going and practicing those other sports. I mean, to the point where I will, I'll set a time period, hey, or I'll set a practice, go out and hit, 50 baseballs off the tee, then take 50 jump shots. Like I'll program it out for him so that he's doing the different things. Because for whatever reason, again, whether it's his personality or maybe all kids are like this, he tends to hyper focus on something once he gets a rhythm going.
No, I think, it's like the shiny new toy. So, I mean, they've been doing something for so long, and then something new comes along. It's like, yeah, ooh, squirrel. and you go, yeah, I mean, I think everybody does that. I think adults do it too.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem and issue with this is you get a lot of parents and adults that are living vicariously through their children. You know, instead of doing what's best for the kid, and might not be what's easiest for the parent, they're trying to, you know, they're trying to get the scholarship. They're trying to be the, you know, the next Patrick Mahomes, the next LeBron James, you know, the next Abby Wambach, or you know, Megan Rapinoe, whoever your child aspires to. But you got to make sure you're not doing it for your own good. You're doing it for what's best for the child.
It's hard to
You know?
break that mindset that, if you're a competitive person, if you want your child to succeed, the mindset is that you have to constantly be doing the same sport over and over and over again, practicing the same thing. And it's not the case. And you've got to break that mindset. But at the same time, there are a lot of sports that require a heavy skill set, above and beyond the athleticism. And as we mentioned a show or two ago, that was one of the subjects that I had called you about when Aiden was going into lacrosse and baseball. I know that, he still needed to work on basketball skills, his shooting form, dribbling, ball handling. That stuff takes thousands and thousands of repetitions in order to get a good grasp of it. So the question that I posed to you was, someone who's doing two sports in one season, they're having, a total of somewhere between 2 and 4 practices and probably 2 and 4 games. So a total of possible of 8 different, 2-hour increments where they're going full speed ahead with one sport. How do you work in the skill training without overtraining them? And that's probably a whole episode we can do on that subject.
I think what a lot of people forget is, first and foremost, we're talking about kids, so overtraining them is going to be really hard to do. It can be done, but I mean, they're young; they'll recover fairly quickly, unlike our old broken asses. But at the same time, it should be fun. Like, you don't want to burn these kids out. The other point I'm going to make is that a lot of the people that are telling you that they need to focus on one sport, they're the people that you're paying to play that one sport. I mean, I would get in arguments with my sport coaches all the time with athletes that I was working with. Yes, their skill work's very important. I get that. But I need them to get stronger. I need them to get fatter or faster. I need them to get fitter, so that they can play their sport as a different athlete. I always go back to this. The U.S. women's national soccer team, probably one of the most successful teams in a long time in our country, and probably in the world. Probably the only ones that might have a better winning record will be the All Blacks from New Zealand, the rugby team. But I think 80 to 90% of those women played multiple sports through high school. And Abby Wambach, who is one of the most prolific scorers in soccer, men or women, gives compliments and says she's so good in the air because she played basketball throughout high school.
So what is it? You mentioned the 3 different planes of movement. Is it a coordination thing more than anything else, that the practice you get from doing different sports that gives you that more athleticism? Is it the different coordinations, the different muscle movements that you have to do? Is that it in a nutshell, why the multiple sports participation works better than anything else?
Well, I think that's huge. I think that's a big aspect of it. But it's also the different social skills that you got to work on as a teammate. and as an individual to be successful in those sports. I know pretty much all the top college football coaches, they all recruit athletes that play multiple sports. They don't just want a football player. They want athletes. And then guess what? When they get on their campus, they're going to decide where that kid's going to play.
I think the other big part of this is also avoiding repetitive injuries. You know, when you
Repetitive motion.
when you do the same motion, play the same sport over and over and over again, you're more susceptible to those repetitive motion injuries. Where when you put another sport in, now your body's receiving stress in a different fashion.
Yeah, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure the highest, the sport with the greatest level of ACL tears is youth women's soccer. And then the second highest amount of concussions for youth sports, number one's football. Number two, women's
Girls
soccer.
lacrosse. I think girls lacrosse is up there too. No. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of it is because they don't train their neck. And, you know, we're probably going to have one of my mentors on this show, Mark Asanovich, and he's going to talk the importance of training for the decrease of concussions and for overall athletic safety.
Awesome.
That'll be a fun one.
Did you do that IG Live with him the other day?
We just talked over the phone. We're going to go IG Live this week coming up. I think Tuesday at 5:30 or 2:30 Central Time, whatever that's Eastern Time, 3:30, I think.
And is that on your Instagram or on his?
It'll be on my Instagram, which I think now is mspell.
All right. You know, for the longest time, for some reason, I really just wasn't into baseball. I played up till I was about 13, and that's when I really started focusing on basketball. And I unfortunately lived with a bunch of friends in college that played baseball, and our apartment got dubbed the baseball house. So here I am. I'm the only basketball player with 4 other baseball players, and at that time I just hated baseball. I've grown to really, really enjoy it now in my older age because I watched my son play, and I've started to understand it at a deeper level as an adult. But as I was teaching martial arts, before I got to this level of understanding, when I still thought I didn't like the sport, I saw a huge parallel between striking in martial arts and baseball. And that's where I really learned that leverage doesn't necessarily come from big, strong, powerful muscles. It comes with coordination and how you whip your body, because that's how you throw a stronger punch. That's how you throw a stronger kick. It all comes down to timing and using your whole body. And if you look at baseball players, when you're batting or when you're pitching, it's the same dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, look at a judo throw. I mean, you can see a 120-pound female throw a 230-pound man across the mat. It's not because she's stronger. She knows how to use her body better and more efficiently and effectively. And years of practice, but at the same time, she just knows her body has probably done that throw 1,000 times, if not more.
So just to wrap it up, Mark, because like we said earlier, this is going to be a reoccurring theme. This is something we're going to be talking about all the time, if not specifically talking about the subject. But if you were to give a general timeline, maybe starting at 3rd or 4th grade, all the way through kind of high school and college, how do you start to narrow down sports? Like, going from kind of trying everything out down to maybe 1 or 2.
Okay, so if I could control, delete, and reboot everything, as I have a child, they would do some form of martial art to start. they would probably swim, and then we're either going to play basketball, soccer, football, lacrosse. We're going to do a lot of different activities.
So at a timeline, we're talking about third, fourth graders.
Third, fourth grade, and then we'll go from there. The one that's going to stay constant throughout the whole thing is going to either be martial arts or wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think it's very good for them. There's Kel in the back.
Sorry.
I think it's very important for them to know how to defend themselves. All three of my children know that they have to do a year of BJJ before they go to college, because I'm not sending any one of my children to college without knowing how to defend themselves, especially my daughter, because I don't want anything to happen. So, sorry about the tangent, but getting back to that, they're gonna do the martial arts all the way to college, and then I would have them do an individual sport and a team sport, and that would be middle school through high school, and then as they get to college, they're probably doing one sport, especially if they're on a scholarship, because coaches aren't going to let them play multiple sports because they're fear of hurting themselves doing the sport that isn't paying them to go to college.
All right. So, critique this if you will, but say like third to fifth grade, they're playing as many sports as they can.
Yep.
Maybe sixth, seventh, eighth grade, maybe they start to chisel that down to one a season. So maybe three, and maybe throw in martial arts in there as well. And then when they get to high school, 2 or 3, kind of just narrowing it down to that most likely one that they'll play in college. Is that a fair assessment?
Yep. I think that'd be perfect. I mean, I think that's right on target. I mean, once again, it's like you wouldn't have your child just eat one food growing up. I mean, you're going to give them a bunch of different experiences so they can increase their palate. So by participating in more athletic sports, you're increasing their athletic ability and their athletic palate, let's say. So, my children have all had sushi. They all, have a wide range of tastes that they've had. And with that going in hand, athletic endeavors and abilities and experiences. And as they get older, they can narrow it down to, what they like to eat and what they like to participate in.
Awesome.
If that analogy makes any sense, I thought it was pretty good when I came up with it.
Anything you come up with is good, in my book. All right, everybody. Thanks for turning in. Next week, you're going to hear the history of strength and conditioning.
And we'll give it a go.
Awesome. Thanks for turning in. We'll see you next time.
All my best. God bless. Stay safe.
Peace.
See you.